way to start an optimist speech, but I'd be lying if I said the world was all sunshine and rainbows. There are wars breaking out all over our world about things that happened all the way back in biblical times, and wars about greed and power. On average, our Earth warms by 0.14 degrees every year. This may not seem like a very large number, but it really starts to stack up over time. We need to trust in the Lord through these problems and have optimism about them. Because if we don't, what are we really fighting for? And then once we find that optimism within ourselves, we need to spread it throughout the rest of the world. The problem with climate change is a huge issue and a very difficult one to solve. It can be very difficult to find optimism here, but there are places to look. One of those positives is awareness. People have never been as aware as they are now of how what they are doing is affecting our world, whether that's positively or negatively. People are more focused on what we need to do positively to affect our world. On the other hand, there are brilliant people working to solve this huge problem, and they are optimistic that they will be able to solve it. We need to have that same optimism within ourselves that they can solve it, because if they don't, it will affect generations to come. And then once we find that optimism within ourselves, we need to spread it throughout the rest of the world and help everyone have a little bit more optimism. The war in Ukraine is a huge issue. Thousands of people have lost their lives because of the scrutiny of greed and power. This is an incredibly difficult place to find optimism. I really struggle, but there are places to look. There were 20,000 people that signed up to help fight for Ukraine. That is 20,000 people that had the optimism that Ukraine could win and good would prevail. That is 20,000 people that were willing to give up their lives and help fight for this cause they believe in. Other nations that supplied aid to Ukraine also had optimism that Ukraine could win. They were not obligated to supply aid, but they did, because they believed good would prevail and Ukraine would win this war. And most importantly, Ukraine had optimism. Ukraine believed they could win, because if they didn't, they couldn't have held their ground off as well as they have. We need to have that same optimism within ourselves, that good will prevail and good will always prevail. And once we find it within ourselves, we need to spread it throughout the rest of the world. Because if everyone just has a little bit more optimism, think about how much happier and more productive we could all be. To have optimism, we need to trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understandings. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 through 6. We need to trust in the Lord to have optimism. He is the almighty power, and he will make our path straight if we believe in him. He has a plan for our lives, and he has a plan for the lives around us. We need to trust in that plan and not sweat the little things when they come up, because he has a plan for our lives, and we need to trust that there's someone greater than us watching out for us. And then again, once we find that optimism within ourselves, spread it throughout the rest of the world, because we could all be so much happier and more productive. Social media is an incredibly powerful tool, and is a tool that can be used to reach millions of people. It can be used to spread a message of good, like optimism, or a message of bad, like hate. Unfortunately, it is mostly used to spread a message of bad, like hate. We need to change that social norm and use it to spread a message of good, like optimism. It is so important, because if everyone just has a little bit more optimism, we could all be so much happier and more productive. We live in a town of only around 179,000 people. This may seem like a pretty large number, but in reality, we are just a tiny town in Montana. We need to use tools like social media to spread this message of love and optimism to the rest of the world and help as many people as we can. So yes, it is true. Our world is broken and filled with bad, but we need to have optimism through all these problems that we are facing this day and age. We need to have optimism that they will be solved, because if we don't, we're just fighting for something we don't even really believe in. So yes, climate change is a huge issue, but there are brilliant people working on it, and they believe they can solve it. We need to have that same optimism. And the war in Ukraine is a huge issue. Thousands of people have lost their lives unnecessarily because of greed and power. We need to believe that Ukraine can win, and good will always prevail. And we need to trust in the Lord with all our heart, because he will make our path straight if we believe in him. And we need to have optimism through him, because that is the only way we can have optimism. And once we find that within ourselves, spread it to the rest of the world with tools like social media, because we can reach millions more people. And if everyone just has a little bit more optimism, we could all be so much happier and more productive.